But first of all, Mr. VanOrd, I want to talk to you about The Witcher 3.
Oh,
you got to play some of this at the end of last week. You got to play like the first 3 hours?
Middle of last week or something. Not really first 3 hours. It was like we had 3 hours to spend with the game.
Okay.
So they stuck us in the, not stuck us because it was good, but it was tutorial and then and then the bit that comes beyond that. And then they moved us forward to do some later game stuff.
So talk to us about that. One of the things I enjoyed most about your preview was that you instantly did not do what they told you and just ran in the direction of some islands.
You jumped in the ocean and swam for 5 minutes.
So here's the real story. All right. Yeah. So the build that they were showing, I was on the PS4 when we went in. So they had PS4 over here, PC, and Xbox One. All the PCs were already snatched up.
Okay.
The minute the press just swarmed into the room.
How did it look on PS4? Quick.
Great. It looked fantastic. Right. So I went up. Unfortunately, I ran into a bug that they'd already fixed, which is when you play like a card game that you can play in a tavern, the game crashed.
Great.
So so they were like, okay, we'll move you to Xbox One and we'll just push you forward now. So I got to play the later part earlier than everybody else, and so I actually finished that quest, and I was like, None of the people have come back to me to like tell me to go to the beginning or whatever, so I'm just going to go out and do whatever the F I want.
What was that like? Just exploring the open world.
It was super cool, and what's interesting is that the way they do it, it's not like sort of the Dragon Age way or the every Ubisoft game way, where it's like you fill the world with stuff.
Yeah, like checkpoint, just
and it's just icons everywhere.
Yeah.
The way they make you want to go out is that they actually fill it with really cool stuff that surprises you everywhere you go. So what I did is I saw, there are islands on the map. How do I get out there? Now, apparently there are boats in the game, but I
Who would have thought, in a world with islands, there would also be boats?
Technology is a wonderful thing.
I hate you, Danny. So apparently there are boats out there, but I didn't see any boats. I just swam.
All right.
And so like it took me like a good 7-8 minutes, and that's an eternity in a game. You know, you're just swimming and doing nothing else. So I finally get out there.
Did you see any fish or like birds during this time, or was it just same swim animation?
There's stuff you can go underwater and see. It's not quite as colorful as like if you do it in Far Cry or something. Like it actually looks like underwater often looks, as opposed to the
murky and terrifying,
as opposed to these weird, colorful worlds that we often build under the water that are nothing like life.
So what happened when you got to the island?
So I got there, and as you get close, you realize something's happening. There's a sound.
Okay.
There's like a kind of sound, and apparently it's just like that. So there's sirens out there. So, but the cool thing about the sirens is that they can plunge into the water and swim and come after you that way.
Okay.
And they also like go into the air and fly. So they have fins and they have wings, and
so nowhere is
there's
safe.
nowhere is safe.
They're like sexy attack cormorants.
Yes, Chris, it's exactly like that. Sexy attack cormorant. So anyway, I get up there and they're just everywhere. There's no escaping it. So it gave me a good chance. Like, first of all, I've never seen a creature like that in a game, the way they've presented. I mean, we've seen sirens before, but not this particular thing. And immediately it was like, this is my reward. Now my next reward is to figure out how to kill it. And then once I figured out sort of how to kill it, and I had my crossbow, which is kind of new, the miniature crossbow Geralt uses to, you can use that underwater, but I couldn't swing at these things underwater. So I'm like just swimming away, and they're nipping up my heels.
Yeah, were you like terrified at any stage? Because the world
of The
Witcher,
terrified.
It's not like the Elder Scrolls where everything levels up alongside with you. Like,
it's not.
You might just have run across
something
that was like 20 levels higher.
Yeah, and it's not like I love Dragon Age Inquisition. It was my second favorite game last year, but I also recognize that it's that combat was almost more of just a thing that you do as you go to get from now to later. Like you could hold down the button and just win a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The thing I love about what The Witcher does, and what it's always done, is every combat event is an actual event, and so you have to be careful all of the time. Unless you want to die, and it also has some of that Dark Souls feel, right? Like you level up and you get better at this stuff, but there's this sense that if you're good enough, even if you're low enough level, you could probably still do this stuff.
Like technique is valuable.
It might take you a long time chipping down the health and rolling around and blocking and whatever, but you could probably still get away with it. And that's kind of a thing I love in role-playing games. And so it hit two of my sweet spots. Number one is it made me want to go out because I ran into something cool like those sirens. I'm like, what other cool things are out there, right? So instead of luring me there with an icon where there was a thing to do.
Where you already know what you're going to do because it says it on the quest mark.
Exactly. And the other part was just I forget because now all I can think about is how awesome that was. So, it hits all the right spots for me. Or like making combat an event. That's the other thing. Like I don't want to feel like everything is like the most incredibly awful, hard thing to get through every time, because after a while that's just heartbreaking, right?
Yeah.
But it made it feel like there was still a potential for me to die all the time, and that's what I love. And it happened a lot as I went out elsewhere into the world and ran into packs of this. And I went out to that island. There was just a treasure chest. There wasn't even any like.
Was there treasure in it?
There was treasure in it.
Great.
Yeah. But the thing that felt like the reward was the discovery.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to pull off. And that's the thing that I think they pull off really well.
And the way you talk about it is really interesting because you're not talking about like I went here and discovered a thing. It's like I went here and discovered a new type of enemy. And then that enemy was jacking me up, and I had to like figure out and discover the best way to like fight that enemy. And then once they were done, I could go about the business of discovering what else was in that area. So it's just kind of at multiple stages. It's never becomes like, oh, I saw that thing. That's really cool. Now I'm just going to do the thing I've done a bunch of times.
Yeah, like there's so much of open world games are known quantities. They just sort of mix the ingredients around a little bit.
It's interesting because I feel like it's telling stories in all of these events. Like, it's pretty hard to take game mechanics or just take a thing like this and feel like you're telling a story with it, but already like this is the story I remember. I mean, I saw a lot of cutscenes when I played The Witcher 3, but that's the story that I came out of it was, oh my god, let me tell you about the thing I did with the sirens and but even some of the quests I did had like I did this side quest where you go after some ghost thing that's haunting a well, and like as you do it, like this whole story of where these creatures come from and like the heartbreak that leads to this kind of spirit even existing, and then when she appears, like she looks like an evil bridesmaid. And I mean, we've seen kind of that design before, like the evil bridesmaid thing, right? But
yeah, storytelling in that series has always been good, but it's interesting to see it in like an open world kind of.
And
like
it's
stumbling into these really well written stories.
Yeah, everything just feels like these little nuggets of interesting things, and part of what makes them interesting is that they're just not done exactly this way in other games, and so that's what keeps you going. It's like not doing the stuff, but the quality of the stuff.
Yeah, these games I remember playing like PC Witcher 2 and always being a little bit sort of having that my PC hat on and being a little bit worried about performance and bugs and stuff like that. Does this game feel a little bit more on the polished side?
It had its few moments. Like I said, it crashed the first time I played.
You're playing an early version, obviously,
and stuff. I mean, and it has some of that stuff that goes along. Some weird collision things. Sometimes the sirens, the AI couldn't quite figure out what to do, and it would kind of like get stuck flapping in the water or on the edge, and little stuff like that. Stuff that they're still, obviously working on. But it did have the feel of, hey, this is a game that's probably going to be complete, which is nice considering it's already been delayed several times.
Yes, it's in March. It's set to finally hit
something like that.
Isn't it May?
Is it May? It's been put back
May?
I think it's May.
I don't know. Like all I know is like what I played was good,
September?
And it's just like, okay, you delay it as often as you need if it means that we're going to get to play this really cool finished game, once it comes out. But I just had a really good time with it, and I like that kind of world, that oppressive atmosphere, which is why I love the Witcher games anyway. But I love that oppressive atmosphere where it's like it's amazing people even still live here anymore. Why are you here? This is awful.
Where else are they gonna go, Kevin?
It's just the kind of place where it's like, how did you guys not just all of you kill yourselves like 20 years ago?
That's one of the problems with lots of open world games is that normal people don't seem to exist anymore. It's all people, either enemies or co-combatants, are all over.
Right, but this really, but it sets it up so well. Like the tone of the world is everybody's just so tired and so beat down.
The Witcher 3 lethargy.
And
I feel like you get pretty tired if like you want to go draw water from the well, but like, oh, that crazy bride's ghost is back again. Guess I'll have to figure something else out.
He's like, this has been going on for 20 years, and I'm like, how come you haven't done anything about it now? It's like, well, now my daughter's sick, and like all this stuff is happening, and now she can't handle the water that comes from the I don't
want to hear about your sick daughter.
Yeah.
I got one more question for you, because it's the one that I keep seeing in all the comments.
You're so empathetic
for this thing. I don't care about your sick daughter. Your sick daughter can go do one. I want to know, has it been murked? Because that's one of the things people are worried about is coming out on consoles now.
Has it been what?
Is it as difficult as it was before?
Yeah. Is that like Angela Merkel?
Nerfed, I mean nerfed. No, I meant Angela Merkel.
Right.
Angela Merkel got her
Angela Merkel.
awful German economic hands all over this video game.
Yes. Hasn't become wildly successful yet, ruthlessly pragmatic.
So has it been un-PC-ified in the console?
Is it difficult? Because that's all the PC fans are scared about.
Honestly, I thought The Witcher 2 played best when I plugged in a controller and played it on PC. And so no. Like, in fact, The Witcher 2 had like QuickTime events. What more console-y, not PC thing can you ask for than a QuickTime event? But no, I wouldn't say that it feels that way at all. Now, granted, I didn't play it on PC, so it's hard for me to say, hey, blah blah blah.
But it felt as difficult when you were playing on the console?
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, like I said before, I don't think they really even changed anything with The Witcher 2. When The Witcher 2 came to consoles, it was still more or less the exact same game. So yeah, it was challenging, but they get you going better. Like one of the ways in The Witcher 2 you dealt the challenge was just rolling around a lot.
Yes.
Even though they had blocking and stuff, just rolling around.
The evade roll
was
pretty good in that. Yeah. I always never wonder why he didn't stab himself with a sword during any of those evade rolls.
Now you can do like quick steps and you can do evade rolls, but parrying and blocking are now a lot more effective. Like I actually felt like I got to parry and like I'd knock back dudes and I'd get to slash them for a minute.
Yeah.
So that all stuff felt a lot, I won't say more forgiving, but I will say it made more sense. It was a much more sensible take on the combat system.
I like a parry being more effective than a roll. Because a roll you come up from and you have to be like, poised to make, like, you have your momentum in the like, while you're rolling, the dude's either finishing a strike or looking at you. But a parry, you're kind of aggressively stopping them and moving into an attack. I always feel like parries should be more satisfying.
Yeah, it's like boxing, counterpunch.
Especially I don't know, there's something too about this game where it feels like you should always have been able to get up in its face. And depending on how a developer handles it, like that constant rolling, depending on how they deal with collision and stuff like that, it can actually be a kind of a get out of jail free card if you just roll around a bunch. Because even though they'll be clearly hitting you, maybe the way the animations are set up, they're not going to actually damage you. So this just feels, it's just great all around.
All right, Kevin, thank you.